I'd like to welcome you to the Board of County Commissioners Workshop. Emphasis is on workshop. That's what this is. We will have an opening. We are certainly pleased to have our citizens joining us in this workshop meeting. I do need to make sure that everyone understands the parameters in which we're operating. Today's workshop is not a rally. It's an informational session. It's an opportunity for all of us to gather information. The Board of County Commissioners is very interested in knowing what's going to be best out of the choices that we have with the limited budgets that we have to move us forward in the business of solid waste. We ask that all understand that this meeting, although it is a public meeting, there are specific speakers who are, quote, experts or classified as experts in their area of interest as it relates to solid waste. At this time, we are going to open the traditional way that we open our meetings versus how we open our workshops. And we're going to have an invocation. We're going to ask Commissioner Harvey to lead us in the invocation and our Vice Chairman to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us bow our heads. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful day, an opportunity that you gave us to study and learn, to listen, to pay attention today, to be civil to one another, and Lord, to move this county forward. We ask that you guide our conversations, our thoughts today. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Thank you, Commissioner Pelletier. Mr. McIntyre, Mr. Gary McIntyre is going to give us an itinerary of the speakers that he has requested to come to share with us. My understanding is that our first speaker, Mr. Rick Westinghouse Allison, is going to be about a 15-minute presentation. Then the Dr. Lou Cicero is going to be about 10, and then the others. We are going to make sure that all points are covered. We do need everyone to not engage in the sidebar conversations that could constitute a distraction to the board. We are taking notes and we'll be taking notes on any commentary that we hear. Let me assure you that there will not be any votes and decisions made today. That's not what the workshop is for. It is for information. Those who have not been requested to speak, we ask that you continue to speak via texting us, emailing us, or doing whatever you would need to do. There will be certainly other public hearings on this issue when the board moves closer to making decisions for our future. Thank you again. Welcome, Mr. Gary McIntyre, to our workshop.
Thank you, Chairman Flagg. And first of all, I'd like to thank all of the commissioners for this opportunity to come to you. And also thank the many committee members that have served in helping come in and brought you all lots of information in the past 2.5 years. It's been ongoing and a very difficult but a very big decision for y'all. Paige is looking forward to build a $300 million plant and employ over 450 employees here in the Putnam County area. We're ready to begin, and I think when you see all of the stuff that we have for you and the financial people that are available for you, we're ready to begin to start hiring people and bringing jobs to Putnam County. First of all, I'd like to tell you about a little something, and I'm going to give you a little gift from the National Association of Waste to Technology meeting, which was held a couple of weeks ago in Tampa, Florida, and it was $1,000 to go to that particular open presentation, and there was people really from around the world. So I have the packages that were given to the people as they enrolled and paid their $1,000. I won't collect $1,000 from you, but we've actually brought the the whole presentation to Putnam County.
Yeah, please, before you distribute the gifts, tell us the value of the gifts and what you have in those bags for the purpose of us being in compliance with Florida statute, sir.
The gifts were free to me, so I'm assuming they're free to you.
That's not my question. My question is the value of those gifts and what the gifts consist of, sir.
$1.
As long as you're being sincere.
Okay.
Proceed.
And I said it was a gift, and that may not be the right.
I asked you about the value, but it's fine. Go ahead and continue, sir. We have to be in compliance with the law. That's all I'm asking. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
This package was given out to everyone that attended the seminar, which was the 23rd Annual North American Waste to Energy Conference in Tampa, Florida. It was held on April the 29th and went on to May 1st. If you will look through the actual presentation and the guest speakers, you will find some of the guest speakers in this room here today that will be glad to address some of the issues that you have concern. We're going to open it up with Ms. Allison Yaka from Westinghouse Plasma Gasification, and she will address all of it. If there's any questions after they do their presentation, please answer all. We'll be glad to answer all questions. And of course, at the end of it, after the 3 presentations, there will always be further questions. Let me introduce some of the people that are here. Besides Allison, we have Dr. Lou Cicero that has over 45 years in plasma application, professor at Georgia Tech, and actually worked with the DOD, Defense and the Nuclear Agencies. Dr. Gary Young, author of a book which we have showed y'all many times, Municipal Solid Waste to Energy Conversion Process, Economics, Technical, Renewable Comparisons, and has over 40 years experience in processing in energy-related industries. Dr. Bob Eason, chemical, with over 20 years of experience in microcomponents and has over 22 patents in the industry. Mr. Carl Conquest is our Chief Financial Officer who works our budget and answers directly to the investors and counts for every penny that comes in and goes out. Mark Carrillo is basically our social media expert, and he has basically set up our webpage now that is up and running, and we'll be adding this meeting to our particular webpage. Brad Hickens is our TV production. We're setting up TV ads that will, we feel that will be informational ads throughout North Florida, and they will start in the probably the latter part of July. Mr. Dave Hodges is our security expert. He is basically president of the PI associations here in the state of Florida and is a licensed private eye, and he would do all of our background checks, not only on us and our investors, but every employee. Don Berg, personal friend, been over a friend for over 40 years. He will be our logistic expert. He will be going out seeking the waste to bring into the plant when we hope to open it in 3 years. Bobby Barnes, he is our insurance, works with Willis Insurance, and he works with the Willis Insurance on the energy practical group, which is global insurance for energy. So we have lots of people. We've only designated, Mr. Flagg, for 3 speakers, but as you see, we did bring other people aboard, so if there was other questions, you could feel comfortable to answer all of those particular questions. There were some other people that we'd have liked to brought with us, but again, some people had to stay and work. So I appreciate it. If Miss Allison will come to the table, we'll let her begin. Allison with Westinghouse Plasma Corporation. Thank you, Allison.
Welcome, Ms. Allison.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Commissioners, Council. I appreciate the invitation. I'm here today to present the current status of the Westinghouse plasma technology and the commercial projects that are operating globally. Westinghouse Plasma Corporation is a commercially proven technology. We lead the plasma gasification industry, which is becoming the more preferred method of waste to energy for various global markets. Westinghouse Plasma Corporation has large Fortune 500 customers, including Air Products and Chemicals, who has invested almost $1 billion in 2 facilities being constructed in northern England in the Tees Valley region. Our past clients include larger customers such as GM, Hitachi Metals, and NASA. Currently, our plasma gasification technology processes various waste streams, including municipal solid waste, but also including more difficult waste streams such as medical waste, hazardous waste, tires, and any other various mixtures of those wastes. The evolution of the plasma gasification technology has been supported by many worldwide leaders, such as Hatch, UTA, Solar Turbines, Velocis, GE, Technip, and others. Our value chain relationships extend to other technology partners for flexible solutions that meet our customers' needs. The Westinghouse plasma technology has been verified by leading companies such as Juniper Consultancy in order to further validate the position of the technology in the waste-to-energy market. We have several commercially operating facilities around the world, as well as others in various stages of construction and commissioning. Now I'll give you a brief overview of those projects. The first project in the presentation is one located in Kaidi, China, or Wuhan, China. This is a facility that is owned and operated by Wuhan Kaidi Electric Power Company. It was commissioned to process 150 tons per day of waste into liquids in 2013. Wuhan Kaidi's goal is to develop larger scale projects up to 1,000 tons per day, identified for waste to liquids, including power, using the Westinghouse plasma technology. Kaidi is a large public company with revenue of over $2 billion per year and is very proactive with the Westinghouse plasma technology in the liquids market. In India, another example of the Westinghouse plasma technology operating commercially to process various waste streams from 40 to 60 different sources to dispose of hazardous waste. This facility is capable of producing electricity. The facility demonstrates the flexibility of the technology to process changes in the incoming waste stream, such as municipal waste will be. Another facility operating since the early 2000s, owned and operated by Hitachi Metals. This facility processes a mixture of municipal waste and sewage sludge, and then uses that energy generated to to produce hot air instead of using fossil fuels. Another facility in Shanghai, China, uses a mixture of medical waste and other hazardous waste to produce steam. This steam is then sold to a neighboring host to replace their usage of fossil fuels. The byproducts of this facility, as well as others, would be a vitrified, inorganic, non-leaching ash product or slag product that can be used and sold to the construction industry. The two facilities that I mentioned in my introduction will be owned and operated by Air Products and Chemicals. Air Products and Chemicals is building two identical facilities, each capable of producing 50 megawatts gross of renewable power from waste collected in the nearby region. This electricity is generated with in a combined cycle configuration in a gas turbine. Gas turbines require strict syngas specifications in order to function properly. The Westinghouse plasma technology has demonstrated that it can produce this level of syngas in order to meet strict specifications for downstream equipment. While employing many people in the construction, commissioning, and operation phases of Tees Valley 1, Tees Valley 2, an identical facility is being built basically right next door. So combined, there will be 100 megawatts gross of renewable power available to the grid. These two facilities are extremely important because they demonstrate many things significant to the technology. One is that industrial scale volumes of syngas can be generated from waste materials. Typically, these amounts of energy is generated from fossil fuels. This amount of energy generated at the Tees Valley sites could be equivalent to up to 2,000 barrels per day of liquid fuels. The strict specifications of the turbines are met by the syngas generated from waste via the Westinghouse plasma technology in order to make the highest value end products, which could include liquid fuels. The plasma technology also demonstrates that renewable energy from waste can be a low-cost alternative to other fuels. In conclusion, the Westinghouse plasma technology is a commercially proven process to convert waste into renewable energy. We have facilities operating in advanced stages ranging from 24 tons per day up to 1,000 tons per day. However, the Tees Valley 1 and 2 projects will demonstrate a 2,000 ton per day overall operating process. The plasma technology provides flexibility to use waste fuels such as municipal waste, medical waste, and other mixtures to provide renewable energy at an industrial scale. Since the technology development, Westinghouse has used global partners with expertise in various aspects of project development, construction, commissioning, and ownership, as well as execution. Finally, the Westinghouse plasma technology provides flexibility to convert various waste types into renewable fuel. Thank you for the opportunity to present the commercial status of the technology, and I welcome questions now or at the end.
Yes, ma'am. If you would, let me give the commissioners opportunity to ask some questions if they have any. Thank you.
Yes, how do you say your last name?
Good question. I just got married almost a year ago, so I'm still perfecting it as well. It's pronounced Yeckel.
Yeckel.
Yes, ma'am.
How about a spelling?
Yeckel.
Thank you. I think I can
Thank
get
you,
that.
Nancy. I know I messed that one up.
Which plant is the oldest one? All of these that you've described, Westinghouse is involved in.
Yes, ma'am.
They're using Westinghouse technology.
Yes, ma'am, they are. The oldest one, so the longest operating facility, could be considered the one in Madison, Pennsylvania. It's a pilot scale facility. It has actually been there since the early 70s. It was converted into a gasification facility probably in the 90s in support of these commercial facilities. Of the commercial facilities, the Japanese facility was commissioned in the early 2000s and is still operating today.
Okay, so the one in Pennsylvania is still a test facility?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what does it produce now? How many tons per day?
The facility in Madison is a pilot demonstration facility, so we use it for specific purposes, but its total capacity is about 24 tons per day.
Okay. And the one in Japan that's been operating from the 2000s, what capacity does it have for tonnage per day?
Also about 24 tons per day.
Okay. What is the oldest one that produces larger amounts of tonnage per day?
The oldest one, well, the India facility is about an 80 ton per day, give or take, amount of waste. So that one would come in second as far as commercially operating facilities.
Okay, and it's how old?
I want to say late 2000s, 2005, 6 or 7, yeah.
Okay, that's close enough. With the facilities that you've named, let's just say the one in India, since it's 80 tons per day. Can you tell us any of the problems that you have had with that facility? Have there been any problems, like shutdowns, or, do you have to shut down for a long time for repairs, or have there been any carbons or anything released to the atmosphere that is not supposed to be there?
Yes, ma'am. So the facility actually functions extremely well, given the range of feedstocks that it was designed for. So it was designed to process between 40 and 60 different feedstocks, and given that range, there is a large range of syngas or byproducts that could be produced or that have been anticipated. During the design phase, those were anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
So any range of fuels coming in were anticipated, and that facility operates as designed. So it's producing power via steam.
And what does it take? Is it municipal waste?
It's what they classify in India as common hazardous waste, or so it's depending on the area of the world what's actually included in that classification. But the classification is called common hazardous waste. So it could range anywhere from what we traditionally throw away in the trash to chemicals and other things of that nature. So it's a mixture of even
Hospital waste, that kind of thing?
I wouldn't say there's hospital waste, but there could be some residuals from trash from hospitals.
Okay.
I wouldn't say there's no red bag material there.
Okay. Do you have anything in production that is along the lines of, well, right now we're producing 200 tons per day, and I think, what is it you project, 1,000 tons per day with your facility, Mr. McIntyre?
That's what we would recommend, Nancy, basically because that's a production because of cost. And what we looked at, again, we go back and look at the ones in England, and also talking to the designers and engineers of Westinghouse, they felt that was the break-even point of making it a profitable plant using waste energy.
The one in England is fairly new. Is it even up and going yet?
It's under commissioning as we speak.
It's
So
being built?
it's
Is-
under commissioning. There are
that
two
mean?
identical facilities. Both are 1,000 ton per day, and both are designed to produce 50 megawatts of combined cycle power with a gas turbine. So each facility is 1,000 tons per day, and that is the scale that works in that particular area of the world.
Okay, so it is up and running.
No, I'm sorry, that was your question, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It is under commissioning, so it is due to be up and running this summer.
It is, so it's being built, is that?
No, it's completely built. The
Oh, it's
one.
Cut
there-
through the trace, what is commissioning? That's what she's trying to ask you.
Yeah, what exactly does that mean?
Commissioning
Y'all
is
gonna
that there's.
hit it with a bottle of
They're
champagne or
getting their
what?
permits, or what is that?
Nope, they're starting up the equipment. Yeah, it's not
Okay.
producing electricity to the grid yet. They're starting up equipment. There are certain sections of the facility that need started up individually, and then they start the facility up altogether.
So at
So
this-
individually, the individual portions of the plant are being started up.
So it's too early to know if there are any problems with that one.
No, well, we're getting feedback all the time, and everything's on schedule. Operational problems as far as producing syngas and sending electricity to the grid, we're not there yet, but those problems are not anticipated.
We actually have a ribbon cutting set, and many of our staff will be going to the ribbon cutting on June the 23rd in England. So we'll be over there for that ribbon cutting and opening.
Okay, thank you.
District 2?
Okay, back to the Tees Valley plant. July is the planned opening. Is that still on schedule this summer?
Yep, so the
Part of
schedule is set by Air Products and Chemicals. The facility is owned by them, so we don't set, Westinghouse Plasma does not set the schedule. But yes, that is a planned schedule is by this summer, to be started up and be feeding.
Now, the feedstock for that plant is what exactly?
Municipal
And it
waste.
is in place, is that correct?
It's
I mean,
municipal.
we've located this plant, we're a large municipal, I think municipal, that's my question. What is the feedstock?
So the feedstock is municipal waste,
Okay, and how many tons is projected to be there?
1,000 metric
No,
tons.
that's how many will do a day. What's there as far as the total tonnage and feedstock next to the plant?
Surplus.
I don't understand your question.
How much garbage is in that facility that they project to burn? I understand it's on quite a few cells, and really, they refer to them as mounds of garbage.
The facility is projected to and will process 1,000 tons
Oh, I
per
know
day.
that.
I don't understand your question, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'll try it when I get there.
No, but it's, how much garbage is in the Tees Valley?
How much,
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I guess another way is putting it, how much is in the warehouse, so to speak?
Available in the region?
Yes.
I don't know the answer
It's
to
fine, I
that
got
question.
it, Walt.
All right.
That's all right. Go on, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Pelletier?
I'm good right now.
Let me help you out there just a second. The plant is, you see Plant 1 and Plant 2, so they're anticipating over 2,000 tons of municipal
I know all
solid
that,
waste.
Mr.
Okay.
McIntyre. Just wanted to know, do you plan on trucking feedstock here? I'd like to know what's there. That's all. It's a simple question.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Mr. Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Miss Allison, if you don't mind, I'll just say that way, okay?
Sure.
The one in England, it's producing electricity right now. It's not producing fuel, other types of fuel. Is that correct?
The configuration of the Tees Valley facility is to produce electricity.
Okay. Why isn't it producing fuel, which would be probably a better market, wouldn't it be?
Not in the location where it has
That
been picked, yeah. So
location.
different locations throughout the world have different business models. So the business model that is the most successful in the Tees Valley region is to produce power from combined cycle.
But wouldn't that facility just be a hyped-up incinerator, pretty much?
No, sir. Incineration, and the PhDs in the room will certainly go into detail about this, but gasification differs from incineration on a chemical level and a temperature level. So gasification is able to process or provide a process at higher temperature, therefore producing syngas as a byproduct rather than flue gas as a byproduct.
So you're not sending anything into the atmosphere over in England. You're making syngas and using that to run the electricity grid, basically?
The facility, the gasification technology does produce syngas. There is downstream equipment that will utilize the syngas,
Okay.
and then there will be appropriate gas cleanup. There's appropriate gas cleanup equipment there.
All right. And if I missed this during your introduction, where did you get your credentials from?
Where'd you go to school at?
I went to the University of Pittsburgh for my
Okay.
mechanical engineering bachelor's, and I went to Chatham College to get my mathematics bachelor's.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Florida.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Jacob, yes.
Can the machine or the unit do electricity and fuels?
It can.
And you can just, in layman terms, flip a switch and we're going to do fuel, flip a switch, we're going to make electricity?
The facility will be configured, if liquid fuels are the main byproduct of interest, the facility will be maximized to produce liquid fuels, and then residual syngas will be used to make electricity.
While I'm respectful of your global presence, and I can appreciate the UK and the Japan and the China, and so forth and so on, I want to focus my attention on the United States of America, okay? The pilot plant, the Pennsylvania test plant or demonstration plant that's there, how long will the pilot plant be a pilot plant, and why don't you convert it from pilot to a regular operating plant so that we can have the real deal happening in America now before you go out and start doing some other stuff?
Yes, sir. So the environment at where the pilot facility exists, there's a site-specific way that we can operate there. It has nothing to do with the technology whatsoever. It has to do with basically the owner of the site, which we are not, the land in which we are there. So the facility has been and was intended and still is permitted to be an R&D facility. So we have not converted it to a commercially operating facility because we have commercially operating facilities around the world that are demonstrating the technology at a larger scale than our pilot facility is operating.
So you mean to tell me that the only place in America that you're interested in is Putnam County?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate?
We're interested in America in general, all over. I mean, we're here, Westinghouse Plasma has been supporting A-Page for the past 10 years as the technology provider. So we provide that support to project developers like A-Page. So we are supporting those project developers where they present projects that are relevant in the United States. So we're not functioning as project developers, owners, and operators. So we're looking forward toward qualified project developers like A-Page, and then we will supply the technology to those projects.
Okay, so an existing location that brings in 1,000 tons per day that's already established, not having to go out and solicit garbage from other locations, don't you think that poses a better formula? I need our technician to get this feedback out of my mic too. If you can get her attention, please. Thank you.
She's got it.
Your question is 1,000 tons per day would be a better solution for the U.S. compared
No,
to?
ma'am, I'm speaking about our county. We do not generate, as of now, we do not generate the tonnage that
I understand.
we need here. And so in order for us to deal with the economy of scale, in order for everything to be successful, certainly has to be more than 200.
It all depends on the economics of the project, which are individually different per project. So the 1,000 tons per day is the scale of the project at Tees Valley for a reason, the economics and technical reasons, plus back-end technology, so the turbines want as much gas as 1,000 tons a day of waste can produce. So if Putnam County could only sustain a facility of half the size, then the technology provided by Westinghouse could provide syngas from 500 tons per day.
If I may, Mr. Pratt, the problem we have in that is a cost of a facility.
Speaking to my,
The problem we have there with the cost of a facility, 500 tons a day, it just cost the same, almost the same amount as a facility doing 1,000 tons a day. So when you break down the economics of it, and our investors will address that, is that it's got to be economic or feasible for Putnam County as well as advanced plasma arc gasification energy. Westinghouse is our engineering design and helps us get there. They don't really have anything to do with what location it is looked at. As you well know, there's other locations in the United States that is being considered by other developers, if you want to use that terminology. Reno, Nevada, for example.
Okay, so tell me where any other commercial operations are currently existing in America. Like I say, I have nothing against those other countries.
Correct.
This is USA, and I'm
Correct.
just concerned that all we have in America is a pilot station. Where
Correct.
is the actual replication or the success story in our nation that you can draw from to help us to understand that this is happening here?
Correct. The sad thing about it is that the United States is very far behind in technology, not only in this industry, sir, but in many industries. If you go to China or you go to India or around the world, you're finding out that we're far behind just because of our political structure right now. And that's very sad. As a disabled Vietnam veteran, they're building one of these plants in Vietnam now, but yet we can't get one in the United States that employs people. And all I hear throughout the United States when I go to Houston or I go to Atlanta is that we need jobs. We need 450 jobs paying good salaries. That's what we're bringing to Putnam County, sir.
So-
Yes, it will not be easy, Mr. Pryor. I'll sit here. It won't be easy. We want no money from you. We don't want any of your taxpayers' money.
Stay on point. I
Please.
don't need you to glamorize this. I'm simply saying, how much assurance do you have that you're going to be able to comply with federal, state, and local regulations if you don't have it happening now? That's all I'm asking. And I'd need the audience to listen to the answer as well. Thank you.
Please
Continue, sir.
ask the question again. I'm not really understanding it.
You're
Okay?
telling me again how far behind we are in America, and you're telling me about the political ramifications. I'm asking you, since you are so certain of the product here, and I'm studying, I'm listening,
Sure, yes.
and I'm learning.
Yes, sir.
Contrary to what others may think, we're not against your project.
No,
We
I
just need
understand that,
proof
yes.
in the pudding, and we need rhyme with your rhythm. And so I'm simply asking, how much assurance do you have that your product, and everyone concerned is going to be able to meet the standard that the federal government, state government, and local regulations? I mean, you sound like you're sure, but yet you say how far behind we are, and you want us to be the trailblazers.
Yes. First of all, let me explain. There is an air operating permit that was presented to a company that was trying to do the same thing in St. Lucie County. We have a copy of that permit and the permit number. So we already know what we have to do. And again, the information that was given to that, we're following that same permit, presenting it to the state of Florida for our air operating permit. So it's about 600 and something pages, and we're ready to produce that to EPA and DOE and everybody else that's necessary to get the permit. That'll probably cost a couple $1 million just to get that permit, because it does have to be backed by engineering. But that is a permit that we have in hand from a similar program that was presented in another area.
That's a wonderful segue. How is St. Lucie County doing right now?
Well, there was a couple issues in St. Lucie County. If you remember, sir, in our economy back in 2005, the individual that was trying to build it at that particular time was given money and was able to receive quite a bit of money to do that program. 2008 came along, and he was in the real estate business. As you well know, the bank started to call all of their notes. So they called his notes, and he decided to close the facility. Well, actually, let me rephrase it. It wasn't ever closed. There was no groundbreaking at all. So he decided not to proceed with that particular procedure.
But they have all of the permits, you're saying, they comply with all of the permits, but the facility never really came to reality.
Correct, yes, sir. He
So would that
decided.
not be a key place then if they have all of that? I'm just asking.
Sure. I have talked to Ronnie Robinson, which is their landfill manager, and I don't, that's not the right word, waste manager person down there, and they have actually gone out for bids and are looking for processors to build one in that particular area. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lima.
But the difference is, in St. Lucie County, they're building a gasification incinerator, not a plasma arc incinerator.
The actual application for the permit was a plasma arc
But they're
gasification.
building a gasifier. I know that for a fact. I spoke with the gentleman also.
Oh, okay. Again, I don't know what they went out for bids for. Again, I only know that the one that was presented, that we have a copy of the air operating permit, was with Westinghouse Plasma, and that's the air operating permit that we're working off of.
Their direction now is towards a gasifier.
Okay, I don't know what they're doing now.
Any other questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Ms. Allison, are you familiar, since Nevada was brought up, the Obama administration, USDA, I believe, loaned McLaren County, Nevada, $104 million, or gave them a grant for their arc plasma gasification plant out there. I believe a company out of Canada was going to build it, and I believe it was Cathay Airlines that has signed a contract to get all the jet fuel that facility produces. Are you aware of that?
I am not,
Okay,
but I believe Gary is.
Yeah.
okay.
I can help you on that, and actually, Dr. Gary Young is very familiar with that, and that is in his presentation. He
Then
will,
we'll wait for that then. Thank you.
yes, sir.
Mr. Pelletier.
This is for Ms. Allison. We're sitting on probably 90 to 100 acres of a trash mountain out there. That was the question that I think Commissioner Lible was trying to get conveyed to you about how much warehouse. We've got a warehouse of garbage, 90 to 100 acres. Are any of these other facilities blending, I guess, what would be current waste streams with a surplus? Because you're going to have all kind of byproduct, and one thing big is there's going to be a lot of dirt in it. Are any of those other plants, wherever they are around the world, doing the same process as what we would need to be doing to clean up our mountain?
Specifically, the facilities that are currently operating are not mining current landfills. However, there are some of the facilities, like the one in China, the smaller facility in China, and the one in India in particular, are processing waste streams with extremely high ash. So soil, dirt, rocks, glass, anything inorganic is coming in as fresh material, but soil would be considered that. So some of these facilities are getting construction and demolition waste, which includes concrete and metal, so all of which are considered inorganic ash. So the ability to process materials like soil is not an issue for the Westinghouse plasma technology.
I guess in layman's terms, is the dirt going to clog it up?
It is not.
Thank you very kindly. Who is your next speaker, sir?
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, District 1?
I'm sorry, I have one more.
Actually,
Just a minute, you have another question.
yes, to answer your question, Dr. Lou Cicero, who actually has a patent in mining landfills, will be the next speaker, and he'll be able to answer that question much better for you, Walt.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Commissioner
Ms. Nancy, I'm
Harris.
sorry.
Mrs. Jekyll, I understand that there was a plant in Japan, it may be Uteshinai,
Utashinai. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew there was a way to do that that sounded better.
Yekel, Utashinai, I'm bilingual.
And that plant was 200 tons a day, similar to Putnam County.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was running, but it was forced to shut down. What happened? Was that one of yours, Westinghouse technology? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. The technology implemented at that facility was the Westinghouse plasma technology. The reason for the shutdown was an economic reason. In Japan, due to its territory, it's an island, so the available waste is somewhat. They have a very high recycling program in Japan, so the available waste for waste to energy is extremely competitive. So the waste contract owned by Hitachi Metals was expired, so therefore they had no more waste coming to the facility, therefore no more reason to operate the facility. The reason for the shutdown was not technical at all.
Okay. How long did it run?
It was commissioned around the same time as the other Japanese facility, so in the early 2000s. It operated until about 2 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
So
You're
point of
welcome.
clarification, increased recycling caused the amount of solid waste available. You're saying that's the primary reason?
I wouldn't say recycling programs are the primary reason. I would say there's a competitive market in Japan in general for waste to energy. So they have already, for years, Japan has implemented a very sophisticated recycling program. And so then the leftovers is what goes to waste to energy. So that market has becoming increasingly competitive because they're very advanced in their renewables portfolio and their waste to energy portfolio. So there's a lot of facilities there competing for waste product as a fuel source.
So it sounds like we need a sophisticated recycling plan.
I encourage recycling. Westinghouse Plasma encourages recycling, sir, yes.
Very good. Yes, sir. Next speaker, please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Allison. Can we
Next
just take
speaker
a
is-
3-minute break before the next speaker starts? We need just a
Sure.
3-minute break. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that'll give us time to set the screen up.
Okay?
Thank you, Mark.
Back in session. Mr. McIntyre, will you introduce the next speaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ouch.
Dr. Lou Cicero has not only been a plasma gasification leader, but he's actually been a very close friend for the last 15 years and guiding us and our investors on succeeding and making this a very profitable organization. Dr. Lou Cicero.
Thank you, Dr. Lou, for being with us.
Thank you very much. Let me first say I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about what I consider my favorite subject, and at my age, maybe my only subject. But I've been involved with plasma technology since 1971, when me and my colleague, Dr. Camacho, developed the first patent on plasma waste to energy, and we've been working on that ever since now, and Dr. Camacho has passed away now, but we're very happy, or I'm very happy to see plasma finally going mainstream, and I really have to congratulate Westinghouse Plasma for having the initiative of pursuing this for the last 25 years that they've been involved in plasma waste to energy technology. For this particular presentation, since the time is of value, what I decided to do is to just put together this one slide talking about the principal benefits of plasma MSW gasification. Do a small explanation on each one of these and see if you have any particular questions. The first one is, and this is perhaps one of the more important ones, is that when using plasma waste to energy as opposed to other technologies like conventional gasification or incineration, we get more power production from plasma than any of these other technologies. And if we're talking regular steam turbine technology, we get 50% more electricity than you get out of a waste-to-energy incinerator with the same throughput. If we're talking combined cycle, like they are doing in the UK, where you take the syngas and run that through a gas turbine, then we get 50% more electricity from that process. So this ends up to close to twice the electricity than you would get from an incineration process. So the bottom line is, if you want electricity, if you want to make power, then really plasma should be the one of the prime candidates that ought to be considered above any of these other processes. The next thing is that many people say, well, plasma's too expensive, you know, we can't afford that, blah, blah, blah. But when you come right down to it, the capital cost of a plasma plant is comparable to the cost of a waste to energy, a mass burn waste to energy, which is the newest technology, capital cost. If you would like, if you take one of these plasma systems and you put one in the vicinity of a existing coal-fired power plant, then you're able to use many of the systems in the coal plant, such as the gas cleaning systems and the electrical generation systems and a few of the other systems. So you can cut the cost of the plasma plant by up to 50%. And this also would reduce the maintenance and operational costs by close to 50%. So instead of talking, maybe $300 million that was mentioned earlier for a 1,000-ton-a-day plant, this could be down as low as $150 million, which would put the cost way below any other possible waste-to-energy technology. The next thing is about the emissions, and people are very concerned about the gases coming out of a plasma plant, but in fact the gases are very clean for a couple of reasons. Though one is because very little air is used in a plasma plant. It's around 10% of what is normally used for an incineration plant. So there's a lot less gas produced, so it's much easier to clean that gas. The next thing is that if you're using some of the new gas cleaning technologies, which the coal plants are going to now, and which was developed for clean coal technology, you can actually make the gas to be as clean or even cleaner than natural gas. And the bottom line on that is that emissions can be made cleaner than natural gas emissions from domestic household gas stoves. And people aren't concerned about their gas stoves at home running natural gas, and we can essentially get the same type of gas from plasma. And in fact, in the combined cycle system that is being used in the UK, the syngas has to be as clean as natural gas in order to be used in the gas turbines, because otherwise you'd ruin the gas turbines. So it's very important that this gas be very, very clean. The next thing I think is also very important. We actually reduce the amount of greenhouse gases going into the atmosphere. For every ton of municipal waste that is processed, we can actually reduce the greenhouse gases by 1 to 3 tons. And one of the big reasons for this is that this garbage does not go into a landfill, which produces methane gas, which is a very bad greenhouse gas, et cetera. And there's a couple of other reasons for that too. But this is one of the few, if not the only technology that actually takes greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. Not even nuclear reactors do this. They just don't produce greenhouse gases, but we actually reduce the greenhouse gases that are already in the atmosphere that would otherwise be there if the power was made by a coal-fired power plant. The next thing is the high-value byproducts, and this is very, very important too, because this hits on the economics of plasma. And as was mentioned in the past, oh, thank you. It was mentioned in the past, we get the byproducts of aggregate, and I'm sure you've seen the aggregate that is produced, and but also when we can take the molten stream, and we've actually done this, many years ago, Dr. Camacho and myself, and we've run it through these spinning machines, and we can make a mineral wool, from this molten stream, which makes a great insulation material, and this sells for about $50 a ton, but this would sell for upwards of $500 to $600 a ton, and they cost about the same to make. So this is a real boon to the whole economics of the process. In fact, there's a company that actually in Fort Lauderdale who was interested in taking municipal waste and not making electricity except a small amount to run the plant, and just making that mineral wool insulation and selling that, and they say that they can make a larger profit selling that mineral wool insulation than is possible than what they would make in selling the electric power. The next thing, which is not, it's not on my screen here, but essentially there's no landfill requirements with plasma. If some products have to go to the landfill, they would be non-hazardous and very, very small. We're talking maybe a couple of percent of the weight of the throughput of the coal plant. And then finally, for many years, people have been looking at energy storage from renewable energy, and they call this the holy grail of renewable energy, and nobody has really come up with a good solution except for plasma gasification of municipal waste. And we can do this by taking the syngas and cleaning the syngas, to close to natural gas, and then storing the syngas for when we need it for peak periods or for other times. And we can actually have this storage of renewable energy products. So these are the main principal benefits, I think, that I've seen over the years for plasma gasification. There are a few others, but these are the principal ones I see. And I'm really looking forward to this technology starting to take off, since it's finally starting to go mainstream after so many years of working on the technology and making presentations, et cetera, et cetera. So I really appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Thank you, Dr. Cicero, District 1.
Okay, thank you. I have two questions for you. One of them, since you brought some, I guess that's slag, that black.
Oh, yeah, the slag.
Okay. In my studying about it, and I'm still new at this too, we're all trying to digest a lot, but I read that some of it has components in it that are not healthy, and some of it is saleable. So how do you know which one is which, and is there a way to make the slag come out all pure?
Well, if the slag is made with a plasma system, I've been melting garbage and all kinds of other things for 40 years now, and if it's melted properly, we don't have any problems. As a matter of fact, the French have built a facility for their incinerator in Bordeaux, France, and the French government did a 3-year study on the slag, and actually the results. I have a small article. The lifetime of the vitrified fiat, which is the vitrified material, stored in the blocks is 12 million years. And then the performance of the vitriat in terms of lifetime are similar to those of natural basalt. And what they do, they test it every quarter, And I have an article I can leave with you on that. And for 20 years now, they've been selling this slag to the highway department with no problem. And the Japanese are doing the same thing with making the aggregate for road construction. They're making sand. Japanese like to make sand rather than the aggregate, but that's used in concrete and in asphalt work. And they've conducted their own studies, and they've been doing this for at least 20 years. So I don't think that there's a big problem, you know, with the slag being leachable, so to speak. And in fact, the Department of Energy, in one of their studies, said that this vitrified slag is 5 times less leachable than bottle glass. And the only thing that's less leachable than that was Pyrex glass. So I don't really see a problem. And I haven't read any studies that say that the slag may not be unleachable. Everything is going to leach a little bit. You know. Let's face that. You know, nothing is never. You never say never. But I've never had any big problems. Certainly not to exceed what the limits, you know, have been established.
Okay. That's my second question. I'm not sure if you're the speaker I need to ask this to. Can you hear me? I'll speak right into it. Okay. If you have a plant like the one in Japan that closed and their reason was they didn't have enough waste, if a plant closes, what is required for the cleanup? I mean, someone has to dismantle everything and take it apart. And are there any chemicals around that have to be treated a certain way? And what is required in the cleanup of a plant that no longer will exist?
Well, as a matter of fact, for the Utashionite plant, they did take that down and return the land to what it originally was. And as far as I know, there was no big problem with the cleanup because everything coming out of that plant is essentially non-hazardous. So I think Westinghouse Plasma could probably answer that better than I can, and maybe Allison can check on that for you when she gets back.
All right. Thank you.
History 2?
Yep.
I'm good.
History 4?
Thank you, Dr. Sestero. I just have a couple of questions. I think in your presentation you had mentioned that there were some emissions from this plant, or I guess an arc plasma gasification plant. Is that correct?
Well, the emissions from the plant after the gases are cleaned are cleaner than natural gas.
Okay.
Natural gas emissions. For example, when you burn gas in your gas stove at home, you get certain emissions out of that.
The reason I asked, there seemed to be some confusion on whether there'd be a smokestack or not a smokestack, and if there was, what would come out of that. So I just wanted to clarify that. So there would be some emissions, but it would be cleaner than our
yes,
household
right.
emissions.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's certainly going to be carbon monoxide emissions, et cetera. But as far as anything that's considered a hazardous emission, I don't think there's a problem there, and nobody else has detected a problem. And if you look at the air permit from the state of Florida, because they actually visited Georgia Tech and our lab and everything, they spent 3 days up at Georgia Tech, and they were completely satisfied about the emissions that was coming out, and that's readily available on the internet.
And you've been doing this since 1971 at Georgia Tech, is that correct?
No. I got to Georgia Tech in 1987.
Okay.
And I started the lab there at Georgia Tech at that time. But I've been working with Dr. Camacho in his lab, which was in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was in Washington, D.C. at the time.
Okay.
So the two of us were the principals back then.
I have one more
Just
question.
before you go to that question, I want to make sure I heard you right. You say it's just carbon monoxide?
No, carbon dioxide.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, carbon monoxide is one of the gases for syngas and hydrogen, of course.
I want to make sure my notes is accurate. Continue, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. You had mentioned the clean coal technology and scrubbing that emissions, as I can put it in layman's terms, if you will. We have an employer here in the county that uses coal. Is there some way to grab their emissions and recapture that and use that inside this ARC plasma gasification plant to cleanse the atmosphere a little better, or?
Well, some people say that you could use plasma to clean gases, and you can certainly get rid of tars and and some of these other compounds, because plasma disassociates the compounds, into the basic elements, and then they normally turn it to acid gases, and you neutralize those gases, with lime or other elements like that. But I'm not sure that this is any kind of a standard practice right now.
I understand. Thank you.
But as far as emission technologies, there are essentially 5 clean coal technologies which I think would really clean up virtually any kind of emissions, from coal plants to plasma plants, and gasification plants, et cetera.
Well, that's impressive. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sessions.
District 5.
Harvey, Dr. Gary Young will answer that question
Okay.
in a little more detail if you'll bring that up.
Oh, yeah.
Any further questions for this speaker?
I have none.
Real quickly, if I could, just Dr. Cicero, the syngas, when you take it to storage, is it converted to liquid at that point?
No. It's
stays a
just a gas. Yeah, I'm sure you could liquefy it if you wanted to go through the trouble, but to just store it in gas storage tanks would probably be all you need to do, especially if you're going to be using it, for peak periods and things like that.
Thank you very kindly. Mr. McIntyre, if you will introduce your next speaker.
This young man has also been in the business for over 40 years, and I think he'll answer some of your questions, Larry, about that, and he'll open that. Keep in mind, every plant has its design and will be designed for that particular area. So there is lots of opportunity here that we have seen. We actually went by the Georgia Pacific plant and the Seminole plant, and he got very excited about the opportunities there. So please welcome Dr. Gary Young.
Good afternoon, Dr. Young. Welcome to Putnam County. Thank you for the trip.
Well, thank you, and I welcome Putnam County Commissioners for inviting me to have the opportunity to speak before you. I've been in engineering a couple of years anyway. I'm 72 and I'm still working and enjoy it. And you just can't leave engineering. Been married 46 years to my wife, and my only wife, first one. I enjoy that too. I love my wife and I love engineering, and she keeps telling me that I love engineering first and her second. And well, I just can't seem to pass that and get across. But anyway, I want to mention about process conversions of MSW to green fuels and chemicals. And mainly in green fuels, I'm talking about gasoline. Because garbage is really a raw material. And everybody thinks it's a waste and everything else. Well, what's somebody else's waste is somebody else's gold. And right now, Putnam County has some gold out there, and you can put together a program to make gasoline. The current process I'm talking about for the conversion of solid waste to green advanced fuels, gasoline, using plasma arc gasification. Basically what you do, if you look at the first slide there, is you take the municipal solid waste and you put it into a plasma arc gasifier to produce a syngas. And just about anybody is known as a chemist in Germany knew in World War II. They took syngas and they produced a lot of gasoline kept the war going for a number of years on their side. So all the chemists and everything had developed all these processes then, and at the beginning of the 30s and the 40s. So once you know, anyone knows as a chemist, and I'm a chemical engineer by the way, but the chemists, the good ones, will tell you if you got carbon monoxide and hydrogen, you can make just about anything you want to make. But carbon monoxide and hydrogen are the building blocks for all the chemicals and just about everything we have. And if you looked out in outer space, you'd figure that one out pretty quick. On the second slide, what I've given you is a pictorial representation. Oh. On the second slide, the pictorial representation of MSW to gasoline, and pictorially because I want you to see that this is the way it would be done today with known technology. On the left-hand side, those are the materials and stuff like coke and flux, limestone, oxygen, electricity, and other materials that are required in a Westinghouse plasma gasifier. Because of when you're gasifying something in a gasifier, let's say at several thousand degrees Fahrenheit, you need materials like that for the flux and the slag because garbage is a complex material. So, but if the feedstock was 800 tons per day of municipal solid waste and 200 tons per day of tires going into, let's say, a plasma arc gasifier like Westinghouse Plasma Corporations, you're going to produce a syngas. The syngas will come over then and go into a gas-to-liquid process. Well, the syngas to gasoline plant, which is the gas-to-liquid process, Primus has one out, but also ExxonMobil has it out there. So all that technology to take syngas to gasoline is known technology. The gasification of municipal solid waste and tires is known technology. Because what I've done is I have proprietary information in my company that I have taken MSW at 800 tons per day and 200 tons per day of tires. And I have the mass and energy balances on a Westinghouse plasma gasifier G65. So I know exactly how much carbon monoxide and hydrogen is produced. And my company had Technip Stone & Webster do a feasibility study on another process I'm working on and everything. But in that report is the valuable part for what I did here was taking carbon monoxide and hydrogen and making gasoline. And for those that know Technip Stone & Webster, they employ 36,000 professionals worldwide. And you can Google it if you want. Just type in Technip, and you'll find they're headquartered in Paris, France. And you'll find out that they are some of the best processing people in the country and in the world. And so from their information, I know exactly how much carbon monoxide and hydrogen can be converted to gasoline, and that's where I have the 70+ gallons of gasoline per ton MSW. So if you look from start to end in this process, what do you know? Well, we know we got garbage. We know what its composition is. We know that we need to do something with it if we don't want to pollute all our aquifers and stuff in our country. So what do? You can gasify it with the Westinghouse Plasma Corporation's gasifier. Why do I select this? I selected it because as an engineer, I consider it the best way to gasify garbage and many waste materials. And it's proven so. Plus they have plasma torches that have proven over time that it's been over 30 years and their plasma torches have been proven. And it's one of the key concepts of at the bottom of the gasifier, you need thousands of degrees Fahrenheit temperatures because that's where most of all your good reactions take place. And you want to drive those reactions forward so you do not have any tars coming out the top of your gasifier. Because a single-stage gasifier where you have no tars exiting the top of the gasifier, you don't plug up equipment and cause all these problems that everybody has with two-stage gasifiers. And Westinghouse Plasma has a single-stage, high-temperature gasifier, low pressure, which is probably, as an engineer, I say the best way currently to gasify garbage and many biomass materials. And I can talk about some other great benefits also. But anyway, the key thing is, if you look at slide number 3, I show you pictures which you can get on the website and everything that show the Air Products Teesside project. And those are 1,000 tons per day of MSW, where they produce 50 megawatts of electricity, and their commissioning is in 2014, which Allison mentioned. And the thing that I like about that is what companies, and Air Products and Chemical Company is an American company, by the way. Isn't it amazing? We got an American company in Allentown, Pennsylvania, that's committed $1 billion of their money to prove out this process. So if you don't think America isn't involved, you need to look at, there's a few people in America called Americans that are actually moving forward with $1 billion investment. Now that's a lot. You can imagine if none of those plants work, you want to buy Air Products and Chemical stock? Let me tell you something. Air Products and Chemicals are probably some of the finest technical people in this country. They make a lot of your industrial gases, nitrogen, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, all these things. If it wasn't for Air Products and Chemicals, you probably wouldn't get a lot of your food products that have been hydrogenated and made safe for you. So these are the kind of people like Air Products, where the technical people and the business people get together with the technical and the business people for Westinghouse Plasma, and we're moving forward. We meaning this country's moving forward. Now, on the last slide, you can see this is my book on municipal solids waste. I wrote it in 2010, and I thought after a couple of years working as an engineer, well, actually, more years than I can count, I decided to pass a lot of this knowledge forward because I've been in, well, I started out as a farmhand at 75 cents an hour, and I did all the good jobs on a farm as a farmhand. And I scooped chicken, well, I'll call it crap, but it was another word that was used, and I scooped chicken manure and steer manure and cow manure and just about every kind of thing you ever could think of. And then all of a sudden I went to University of Nebraska, where I got my BS, MS, and PhD in chemical engineering, and knowledge was coming in. And I learned that when I worked my way through high school as a farmhand, what I was a manure specialist. Does that give you a clue what education can do for you? I made a marked improvement in my life when I went to college because I learned about these things I was doing in life to go places. With that, I better stop. One question was asked about, can we do anything with carbon dioxide? Well, I'm just kind of an old Midwestern engineer, and I heard all the complaints about carbon dioxide and how it was going to kill us all off and ruin us, and we're going to have green all over the place and this and that and the other, and the sky is going to fall. And I looked at it and I said, well, how about if carbon dioxide is just another raw material? And I said, what can you do with it? Well, I remember a couple of things when I was studying. You know, I studied a lot in my life. I like technical materials. But anyway, if you take carbon dioxide and you react it with carbon, say charcoal, you convert CO2 plus carbon goes to 2 carbon monoxides. And everybody told me it wouldn't work, maybe 2 or 3% conversions. But there was one person that believed me, and it wasn't the Lord God. The person that believed me was my wife 5 years ago. And my wife Nancy's in the audience. So I kept plugging away with my thermodynamic model and gasification on my computer. Thank the Lord God for the personal computer. I used to start off with slide rules, and I've made progress since. I still know how to use computers, and I enjoy it immensely. And computers are the best thing old farts ever had. But I can tell you that from those tests, I learned a certain regime where if you took carbon dioxide and a carbonaceous material like any carbonation material's got carbon in it. With steam, and at the right temperatures, you can convert that to syngas, carbon monoxide, and hydrogen. Well, lo and behold, if you can do that, what can you do? You can take carbon dioxide, you can react it with a carbonaceous material, and you can end up making syngas, and then you can take the syngas and make gasoline out of it. Wow, now that's something new. What can you do then? Well, I'm gonna make CO2 coming from a coal-fired power plant that everybody says is nasty, and I'm gonna take that CO2 and I'm gonna convert it to syngas, because I can use crude natural gas coming off a wellhead. I don't need purified gas, and steam, and I can make syngas, and then I can convert that to gasoline. Well, what does that do for you? You don't have to have gasoline made from crude oil. What does that do for you? Well, it pumps about $900 billion into our economy, in case anybody's interested. It creates wealth. You can do it right here in this county. You can either wait for somebody else to do all your work for you, or you can just pull yourself up by your bootstrap and say, I'm American. My forefathers and my foremothers have done wonderful things for me, and I'm going to have them lead me by example, and we're going to do it. Enough of my preaching. I'm not a preacher, because I just don't know enough about the Bible, so I'll stick to engineering. Do you have any other questions?
District 1,
Come back to me.
District 2,
I'm good.
District 4.
Yes, I do. Along the lines that you said about the carbon dioxide, I guess, going through the coal-fired generating plants, is that correct? Is that what we're referring?
Well, you can, for example, you can take a corn to ethanol plant. Well, in the anaerobic fermenters, what's discharged?
Right.
Or comes off? Carbon dioxide.
Right.
Well, you can take the carbon dioxide from a corn to ethanol plant and use my process to make the syngas, and you can make more ethanol. Because once you get the syngas, you can use a biochemical process to make ethanol.
So if this
So I
plant-
can double the ethanol production in a plant without using more corn. Well, that solves a lot of the food problems, because everybody's concerned about making ethanol. Well, if I can make ethanol out of carbon dioxide, using the carbon dioxide on site by a corn to ethanol plant, then I do a lot of good things for the country. I don't have to disturb the food plant. I keep it, everything's going in the food plants and in the corn to ethanol plants.
My question is
Sure.
the emissions that are going on out just north of here from our largest employers. You could take that gas and make that fuel out of there?
My current studies is about 70% reduction in CO2 and make fuel out of it, yes.
Thank you.
And I've, based upon the experimental data on a 12.5 ton per day pilot plant data that we got converting the CO2 to syngas, and then the syngas to gasoline from Technic, Stone and Webster's process studies. They actually confirm my numbers. I'm bragging a little bit, but then after my age, you got to do a little bit of that. And I was very pleased. And we have all the technology in this country to be so wealthy. This country is so blessed. We just need to get our act together and create all these jobs, because we got technology. Let's get the business smarts to do it. This whole country and prosperity was done by business and technology, B&T. So folks, my idea is let's just go do it.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, after all, somebody deserves the jobs besides some of us here at the meeting.
Chair.
District 1,
Okay, thank you.
I don't think we're quite through with the professor.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You're trying to get out, but you got to come back.
Well, don't be in a hurry.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Doctor, I was, in my reading, I found that there have been shows of emissions of dioxin in the atmosphere where there have been some plasma arc gasification facilities.
Not to my knowledge. My understanding is that plasma arc gasification, high temperature, destroys all the the dioxins. That's the reason it's plasma gasification is used in all these hazardous wastes and everything else like that, because the dioxins show up in the thermal processes, which are the what's the word I want to use? Like incinerators. Dioxins show up in incinerators because you're using air as your oxygen source. And so when you burn it in a incinerator where you're using a excessive amount of oxygen and your nitrogen air and everything else, you end up forming these dioxins. Well, with plasma gasification, you're using an oxygen deficient atmosphere and high temperatures where you're driving practically everything you got that's harmful into carbon monoxide and hydrogen, and everything else is broken down until you get a vitrified slag. It's kind of like coming off a volcano. Have you known any volcanoes that have vitrified slag that are calling leaching when they're right there in the ocean, most of them? Vitrified slag, and it's in my book, I think it's on 185 and everything, where people in other parts of the world like Japan, and what they're doing is they're taking ash that's coming off of a coal-fired power plant, and they're running it into a plasma gasification plant. And of course, they supply energy to it, but they vitrify the ash till it's a vitrified slag, so it's no longer a toxic material. So plasma gasification has many applications. You just have to study it and work with competent engineering firms. I didn't say all engineering firms are competent. I'm just saying I know a few that I trust by working with them. And if you get the right people doing the right job of it, you can be very successful. Any other questions?
Well, let me finish this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's an article, I guess, about the plant in Japan, and it said that that's the plant that the dioxins were from, and it says, the last part of the sentence, and dioxins and furans can reform at certain temperatures if chlorine is present. So,
What's the article?
something I got off of the internet.
Could you send me a copy of that? You have my internet.
Yeah. And I have read a couple of other places. I keep doing research and trying to do my
That's
homework.
good.
Well, it mentions about things being emitted into the atmosphere that are harmful. So I keep hearing you and Mr. McIntyre say that there are no emissions, that the system is, foolproof. But I guess in a perfect world, everything doesn't go exactly right. Things break down, and I guess things could change with temperatures, or other things might be present. But I wondered if you knew of anything.
We have enough regulations from the Environmental Protection Agency and the state agencies, and very few companies that I would know would want to be putting dioxins into the air to harm somebody, because once you do and get caught at it, you're broke. In this country, you will not survive in the private sector if you do harm to the citizens, because the government's going to knock the heck out of you. And I'll guarantee you one thing, with the litigious system we have in this country, and let me tell you, that regulatory force is awesome. And Americans face more restrictions to keep you straight and narrow than any other country I know of.
Okay. Are you familiar with a plant in Ottawa, Canada called Plasco?
I'm a little bit familiar with it, but I do know when it was running properly. But they had a two-stage gasifier system where they had tars and stuff coming on. If you have to do two stages, you probably failed in the first stage to get the amount of syngas you want. And you go to the second stage, you got a tarry type things. Well, tars plug up everything. So if you didn't run the second stage just right, then you got real problems downstream, because then you can't operate very long. But when Plasco was, from what I understand, was running, they had it actually running a little while, maybe a week. They had no problems. But their problem was they didn't have a good gasifier. And when they did try to use some torches. They weren't using Westinghouse Plasma's torch, for example. The thing you got to understand when you build a plant, you better have good plasma arc torches. And Westinghouse Plasma Corporation's been longer in the business of providing those torches.
Well, that's what I mean. Not everything always goes perfectly.
No.
But the one in Ottawa just closed down in the last 3 months.
Yes.
And it says Ottawa severs ties with Plasco as company files for creditor protection. And just reading the article just brought up some questions. So they had a plant and it was going, and they were producing 300 tons a day, which is closer to what we might have in Putnam County. And it says that it resulted in a loss of 80 jobs. So if they're running a plant with 80 employees and they're only producing 300 tons a day, I was wondering how you were figuring 450. If you had 300 tons a day and you had 1,000 tons a day, like you're talking about having, Mr. McIntyre, that'd be 3 times that, so that'd be 240 employees.
Okay,
3 times
thank
that.
you,
So-
Nancy. First of all, you're comparing a grape to a grapefruit. The plant that you mentioned basically was a high-tech incinerator. It burned it at 1,000 with emissions, and then what was left over, it burned at 2,000 with emissions. It had nothing to do with Westinghouse Plasma, Alter Energy, Page, GE, or any other companies that we are actually associated with. I would never recommend anything like that, because actually all it is a high-tech incinerator. It had lots of ash, and as Dr. Young just indicated to you. And I think there's other areas. I think one time it came up, Chip, you indicated that Gainesville was looking at something like that. And again, it was a Pasco system. Now they were looking at a woody type product, Chip, and the investor there basically was trying to do a woody type product and try to get gasification out of it. And I think this is what y'all must understand. Lots of companies use the word gasification. They'll come out, in fact, there'll even be some landfills that say they're gasifying things. It's the advanced plasma arc gasification to energy. It's the torches that gets the high temperature that really disposes of everything and does what we have talked
Plasma
about.
gasification project is the wording that they use for this type of project.
Well, then they misprinted it, because it's not a plasma gasification, and it had nothing to do with Westinghouse. That's the key factor. They
Okay.
might have used some other torches, but again, if you get down to it, it's 1,000 degrees and a 2,000 degrees incinerator.
It's like anything else. You got to be careful what you buy, who you buy it from. It's just like buying a tractor for a farm. You want to buy a good tractor. John Deere's a good one.
I had one more question. There's not that much information out there, and there are not many plants in the world, so we have to go by what we have. But I just wanted to ask this question about that plant. They had a contract with Ottawa, and the contract was a 20-year plan. Of course, it didn't go to fruition because it failed. But it said that the contract would have paid Plasco $9.1 million a year to take up to 300 tons of garbage a day. That's a very big price.
Well, I can't talk about the business arrangements that were done with
Okay.
Plasco, because first of all, it's like anything else in business. You got technology and you got business. And what you need is to get good business people with good technical people so that you can prosper in your community. And I can't talk about what went on in Canada, because that's way beyond first of all, I wouldn't want to know all their details anyway, because if I think they're using the wrong plastifier or the gasifier in 2 stages, I don't even want to be associated with knowing much of anything, because
Thank
I
you,
know
Doc-
they're going to have
Thank you,
problems.
Doctor. You say you don't have any information on that, so we
That's
won't-
right. Thank
we
you.
won't stretch that out.
All right, I just want to compare that number with something that Larry Gass said the other day, that if we brought on 400 more tons a day from another county, that we would make about 3.6 million in a year. So I just wanted to get that number in place, that this gasification plant was gonna be 9.1 million a year for 300 tons, and doing what we're doing with the landfill, which we already have in place, was 3.6 for about the same amount. Okay, I was trying to match
Okay.
up number of employees and cost of production.
Oh, well,
Any further questions for Dr. Young?
that's not the good question for me.
That's fine.
But I tell you what, if you have questions, though, you have my email. You send me anything, Nancy, and I would appreciate it, and I will look at it and promise you. My wife's name's Nancy, and Nancy
To remember.
and Gary will get in touch with you, okay?
Thank you.
And I would appreciate it, because honest, I'm just an old man, and you keep me busy if you give me some questions. Thank you.
Thank you,
Anyone
Dr.
else?
Young.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And by the way, I do appreciate your patience. My wife will tell you that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mr. McIntyre, who's next?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's always a question that constantly comes up about financing. We do have our Chief Financial Officer who works directly with all of our investors. And if you would like, he is here and would like to address that we do have the money and we're ready to move forward. If you would like for him to come forward.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Yes.
I think we still have some technical questions. Our director may have some questions, and I would rather stay with that technical component.
Sure.
And then you can talk about your financing, which I don't know the relativity right now in this meeting, but whatever the pleasure of the board is fine with me.
Sure, yeah.
I
Put your
do think,
microphone down, Mr. Gass.
before we get through, maybe not now, but we do need to ask questions about finances.
We
That's
do.
very
I'm saying
important.
I want to keep it all with the technical part, and then we can deal with the financing part of a specific company. Because right now, when you start dealing with a specific company, it's as if you're getting ready to engage into some type of contract, and that's not where we are. Mr. Gast.
I had some questions that probably different people may be able to answer for me.
You ask the question, and then you decide, Mr. McIntyre, who you would like to call to respond. Thank you.
Was there a waste characterization done on the United Kingdom Tees Valley plants? Because most of the waste characterizations I've seen from European countries are totally different than the waste characterizations in the United States.
Okay. Allison, I would probably say, can you answer that? Because that's actually more on Westinghouse.
So yes, sir, there was certainly a waste characterization done. I cannot comment exactly how it differs. The waste differs in Tees Valley as it would in Putnam County. But in general, I would say that the waste in a society in the UK is very similar to that in the United States.
Okay. And the Tees Valley sold their production directly to the government, is that correct? That they bought the power in bulk to put to the grid rather than going through the normal supply and demand process? From their latest publication that I saw, they said that that was what they did, that the actual government bought it as their green credit energy, and then the government was supplying it to the grid, collecting money for it.
Yeah, so there is a structure, a financial structure involved with the bulk production of the electricity there. I don't know the breakdown of it, but they are receiving a portion of their revenue from electricity generation is coming from renewable energy credits.
Okay, and they also said that the 1,000-ton per day facility in Tees Valley had 50 employees operating it. How do we go from 1,000-ton facility with 50 employees operating it to 450 employees for another 1,000-ton per day facility?
Good question, Larry. First of all, they probably meant 50 employees per shift, and there's 3 to 4 shifts. There's no way that you could operate a plant of that size, and if you've seen it, it's a large facility. Now, keep in mind, that particular facility, they receive waste different than we will. We'll receive it under a single string process, and again, that will be collected, sorted, and before it goes into the hopper. Now, that will be a certain amount of employees. Once it goes from there into the plasma gasification, then that's basically very lab orientated. Lots of people will be there testing it to make sure it moves properly through the system. And of course, what we call the back end, which is the fuel producing system, that's also employs more people. So the 450 employees is actually probably a very conservative number, but also keep in mind what we want to do here is also make this a national headquarters, and we will look at one of the buildings that you have up in your enterprising area. We'd like to buy that building, and we'll spend about $5.5 million converting that building into a national headquarters, so many people will be employed out of that building itself.
Okay, Westinghouse Plasma Corporation, is that part of the Westinghouse Corporation, or is that part of Alter Energy?
Westinghouse Plasma Corporation is a wholly owned subsidiary of Alter Energy. Alter Energy is a Canadian company. Westinghouse Electric is a nuclear company owned by Toshiba. So we are not affiliated, other than the fact that we both pay royalty
For the name.
fees for the brand. So but the technology itself was developed by corporate Westinghouse, the same company that developed the nuclear technology, developed the plasma technology, and it has remained unchanged since.
Since 2005, California has been trying to institute alternative technology disposal for solid waste. Has this technology from Alter Energy gotten approval as a alternative disposal technology for California?
I'm not familiar with the regulations within California, so we currently don't have any active projects being developed in California, so I don't have any current information to feed back about that.
Okay. I do have a copy of the air permit that you referenced about the St. Lucie plant.
Correct.
And the Section 1, the general information about that plant, states the facility regulatory classification as a HAP, that the facility is a major source of hazardous air pollution. And it also has it listed as a Title V major source of air pollution in accordance with Chapter 213 FAC. That's the air permit for the St. Lucie plant that you said that you're following the same guidelines for.
We're basically using Westinghouse plasma. That's what was presented to the St. Lucie thing. The air operating permit, from my understanding, Larry, was that it was passed and ready to move forward. Now, again, we will, at this particular plant, wherever we build it, we'll have to go through a similar process of air operating permits and DEP and DOP and all that kind of stuff. So we're prepared to do that, and we'll meet all their requirements and regulations.
Okay, I was kind of wondering how you get the 1 to 3 tons reduction in greenhouse gases per ton of municipal solid waste, when most of that is going to be reproduced back up into CO2 within the atmosphere, where when you actually bury solid waste, you actually sequester the carbon and don't have that reform as a greenhouse gas.
Okay. Dr. Young? Oh, Dr. Liu?
Could you repeat that question again about greenhouse gases?
Yes, I was trying to figure out how you get the 1 to 3 tons reduction in greenhouse gas through the plasma gasification, since everything is being turned into what will eventually be a CO2 byproduct. When you landfill waste, you actually sequester some of the carbon, and that is not going into the greenhouse gas of carbon dioxide.
Yeah, well, actually, I gave a big paper about this in February at this big conference in San Diego. And actually, when you take municipal solid waste and you gasify it, you actually get an increase of 0.7 tons of greenhouse gas to the atmosphere. However, since that MSW does not go into landfills, you don't get the methane gas that would normally come out of there. So there is a reduction of 1.5 tons of greenhouse gases. Also, with the increased electricity that you get from the MSW, you actually save a lot of coal being incinerated in a coal-fired power plant, and that's an additional 1.2 tons reduction. And also recall that municipal solid waste is at least 60% of it, 50 to 60% is considered carbon neutral. So that's not counted as a greenhouse gas. So that's 0.4 tons reduction. So this total, when you take the initial negative and add the other reduction, you get 2.4 tons of greenhouse gas reduction altogether. And please bear in mind, and I have a reference to this in the presentation, and I can send that to you too. The largest coal plant in the U.S., 3,600 megawatts, generates 2.36 tons of CO2 per ton of coal combusted. So if we processed an equal amount of municipal solid waste that coal plant is producing, you would actually completely offset all the greenhouse gases that would be coming out of that coal plant with the benefits that you get from the municipal solid waste. And even the EPA states that for conventional gasification, for every ton of greenhouse gas that you, every ton of municipal waste that you send through a conventional gasification, you reduce at least 1 ton of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. So even there on this same page as we are. And they're talking conventional, and I'm talking plasma, the 1 to 3 tons of greenhouse gases. And I can send you the EPA presentations on that too, if you want to see those.
Okay.
Yeah, you can remind me on that.
Are there any permits in the United States for the use of the slag produced by this product? I know that the state of Florida currently is using some thermal conversion waste material being placed into concrete, being placed into asphalt, and is requiring groundwater monitoring for all areas where this is being used.
Yeah, well, we don't have any major plasma plants in the United States that's producing this particular slag, but as I was saying in my presentation, the Japanese have conducted studies, and they've been using this for years, is aggregate or concrete and asphalt, and the French has been doing it, and it was the French government that actually conducted this study, you know, and I have that the paper here. I can send you the complete document in French, you know, if you wanted that, but I have the summary on that, and I haven't seen any problem with using that slag, and they've been doing it for 20 years, and the European limitations are more strict than they are in the U.S.
And this is from the same type waste streams that we have here?
Oh yeah, municipal solid waste. As a matter of fact, at Georgia Tech, we're the ones that did the initial studies, you know, for the city of Bordeaux. They gave us a contract. And actually it was for incinerator ash, you know, from their incinerator. But the waste was the same as essentially in the United States. They said it's 5,000 pounds of
Have
incinerator.
there been any studies as to the amount of things in the slag that would be released when a sizing operation would be done during the crushing and the operation of that slag to make it where it is suitable for use with concrete or road base or any of that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
well, this was a portion of the French study that the French government did. They checked the different sizes, and it was essentially all the same. But in the same way, we have done our own studies at Georgia Tech, and especially with the mineral wool. I mean, you're not going to get it any finer, than something like this. And this is resistant to leaching, is the big boulders that we tested. And we use a standard TCLP test, they call it, from the EPA.
I noticed that there was a requirement for 20% tires to have the optimum efficiency.
Oh, this is for tires. I think that was just an example that,
Okay.
that he used, in the model that he used.
Because the air permit for St. Lucie did not allow that amount of tires to be burned in the facility.
Yeah, no, I think he was talking about the, this particular waste to fuel model that he had put together.
Okay. That's got me.
Point of order, can you let him answer that since you say you think? Can you let the proper person answer that because you said you were thinking, and I want the person who has the answer to bring the answer for the record, please.
Oh, yeah.
He'll ask it again.
Please
Yes,
ask your question.
Your model of the optimum use showed a 20% tire and 80%.
Well, I didn't say it was the optimum use. That was an example because I had the mass and energy balance data on a 800 ton per day MSW feed with 200 tons per day tires. And I just used that as an example because I had the mass and energy balance, good information. So I could then work my way to seeing how much gasoline was made. So therefore, as an engineer, I was using valuable exact data to create the example here for the presentation, because I just didn't want to dream these numbers up. I mean, I have all the information in my company that I'll go anywhere under the right circumstances, and I'll show you exactly. This is all known stuff. I don't come before you folks unless I know my facts are straight.
Okay, nobody's questioning your credibility.
Oh, I know that,
So-
Carl,
so,
but I'm
okay,
saying
well,
is,
well, listen to me
yes,
just a
sir,
moment.
go ahead.
Answer his question now that he knows that it was not, something that was hard in fact, that you used it as an example. I think that's all he needed to know.
Well, thank you, Carl, I do appreciate that.
Thank you. Just want to keep
That
us
was
on
very
point.
thoughtful of you to step in there, because you're chairman, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Anything else, sir?
That's it.
Oh, I sure appreciate it. Next
any
time you
other,
can ask me another question, I'd really like to hear it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very kindly. Any other questions on the technical components before we move forward to financial?
I have some things just to ask Mr. McIntyre. Is that okay?
Sure.
Mr. McIntyre, I wanted to ask you, I touched on this before, but since you're proposing a commercial solid waste disposal facility worth hundreds of millions of dollars, could you please describe each of your principal officers' experience with commercial solid waste disposal?
Well, everyone that has come up here and spoke will be involved on the engineering design of it. Westinghouse Plasma does engineer, design it, and actually takes it all the way out to the construction end of it. We'll have an EPC, which is an engineering procurement contract, which guarantees that the project will work. He will actually build it, and he is actually the one building the one in Tees Valley, England. And then, of course, as I pointed out earlier, we have Mr. Bobby Barnes with Willis Insurance, which is actually in the engineering and fuel capacity of Willis, which actually secures the investors. I always laugh that these investors are coming together and putting up lots of money, but every bit of their money is insured through the insurance company. So there's really no risk on their part.
Okay, what does EPC stand for?
Engineering procurement contract. That's the actual contractor.
So he will work day to day at the facility,
Correct. And
and
we have
you're
other,
employing him.
we have other people beside myself that will be boots on the ground with that individual to follow through and keep the cost and budgets in line.
Okay, but each of your principals do not have any experience in the solid waste or plasma arc gasification.
They are the principals that are involved are very big, and they have involved in many hundreds of companies. So I don't really know exactly how many and what capacity. I think at sometimes I can't open that door particular to use a name, but they have actually owned different landfills and things of that particular nature. So they are familiar with the waste industry.
Well, when I asked the question to the top three that you had, you and two others, none of you had experience. And one thing that really bothered me, let me see. The project in Ottawa closed down, and it had been going for at least 5 years. And this one comment says, "I do not understand why the city signed a deal with a company that seems to have so little experience in plasma arc gasification."
Okay.
And I'm thinking, I sure hope our citizens don't come back and say that about us. And it just kind of wakes me up. So I need to know, what experience does your company have as far as boots on the ground, you know, every day, not someone from afar that you call and ask.
Correct.
And it indicates how strong your company is for us to trust you to do this.
Sure.
So that's why I'm asking.
Yes, I understand, and there will be boots on the ground, and I'm sure you understand, Nancy, when we sign these employees on, they will be very professional, and I, dear, have spent many years on it, and we will do a complete background check on them. You don't go out and hire the plant manager before the plant is starting to break ground. That would be very expensive, because you're talking a plant manager probably in a neighborhood of $200,000 a year. So once we break ground and start construction, then that particular plant manager will be involved in all aspects of it as it moves forward. And we do have people in mind that we have talked to on that, but they are actually employed with other companies now, and I don't want to mention their names, if you don't mind, please.
Okay. I think that, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I think you told us in the beginning that there are times that the plant is shut down, that the torches have to be replaced, and that there are things that you have to do routinely in that type of business. And I was wondering, if you have 1,000 tons a day coming in, how will you handle that if you have to shut down?
Well, again, there's
how will
lots of
we handle it?
information that has come to me. Actually, Westinghouse now has established that the torches do not have to be removed by any time. This electronic probes can be taken out and put back in while all the other torches are going. Would you like to address that?
Sure, yeah, I'll answer that more completely. So one of the advantages of the Westinghouse plasma technology is the fact that the operation is not pressurized. So the gasifier itself is not pressurized. So if as plasma torches need to be maintained, which they will, because it's a piece of equipment that needs maintained just like your car, they can be removed in and out of the gasifier as the gasifier still operates and processed as municipal waste. So the gasifier itself, depending on how large it is, will have a certain number of plasma torches mounted on it, and their periodic maintenance cycle will require one of them to be removed and replaced with one that has been tuned up, per se, while the others continue to process the municipal waste coming in. So that's one of the advantages of the Westinghouse plasma technology as opposed to an incinerator or a traditional gasifier. Whereas if there is some sort of need to do a maintenance on the gasifier itself, the whole system needs to come down. Whereas the Westinghouse plasma gasifier is not like that.
So you do not anticipate times when the system would be shut down?
For any facility, whether it's a traditional coal power plant, a traditional natural gas power plant, there are planned maintenance shutdowns, just like they happen here, they happen anywhere. So, and that's not particular to the gasification technology. The turbine itself, any kind of pumps and fans, even the basic utilities that supply water, to flush your toilets will need to be regularly maintained. So just like any facility that's built, there will be planned maintenance periods for shutdown.
I understand.
Yeah.
And I was trying to deal with that. What I was having trouble understanding is if we have 1,000 tons of garbage coming into Putnam County every day, that's huge. That's a lot. We have 200 tons now, and, we're working very fast, but 1,000 is just, it's hard to fathom. So if those are coming in and it's shut down for 3 or 4 days, what do we do with all of that? Is there a plan for that? Or can the county shut down its landfill if you were operating? Or do we need to keep it going to try and help with the backflow? Just how will that work?
One of the exciting things that we have enjoyed about Putnam County, not only the good people and the beautiful area, is that you do have a landfill. So if there was a shutdown, or I use, for example, a hurricane that hit the area, and now we have 5,000 tons of limbs and leaves and things of that particular nature, we would be able to put it into your landfill and draw off of it. And anything we put into the dormant landfill would be taken and put back into our system as we grow, as needed. So
You would want us to keep the landfill going?
what we recommended to the staff or to your committee was to basically, EPA has basically said it's called a dormant landfill. We don't anticipate it ever being used, but for emergency purposes, that's the good thing about Putnam County. You could have that landfill available for us if it was needed. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gast, is that something you understood?
Well, the thing that I was trying to understand is how would you fund the landfill to keep it opening if you're getting the revenues for the disposal of waste?
I think we're contributing back to Putnam County with taxes and everything now, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $7 million a year. This is not going to be an easy process, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have to sit down with your county manager and your county attorney and work out all the details that is going to be beneficial for Putnam County and its citizens. We have the finances to do that, so yes, it will be a process, and the landfill is something that would, we think that could be worked out. We may have to lease it. Again, that's something that can be worked out over time, or you tell us what you want.
I'd like to say something, Ms. Harris, about the problem that you mentioned about one of the plants closing down. Dr. Camacho and I have always advocated at least a 2-line operation. So you got 2 lines working at the same time. So if one goes down for scheduled maintenance, the other can still operate. And these have some overflow built into them anyway. If it's 1,000 tons a day on this plant, it could probably take at least 1,200 tons a day, the same with the other plant. So whether you have scheduled maintenance or unscheduled maintenance, if something just breaks down, you're still working, you're still producing electricity. And you can increase the number of lines, like at Tees Valley, there's 3,000 to 4,000 tons a day being produced in that area. You could have 4 lines. And if one goes down for unscheduled maintenance, then it should not be a problem for the other lines to make that up.
Thank you. A visual picture helps sometimes. Thank you.
I'll
Mr.
expand on
McIntyre,
that.
while you're addressing that issue, address the issue. We have heard over and over and over that this county does not want outside waste. And if we're going to say we definitely need 1,000 to make this happen, how will the 1,000 or the additional 800 get to the landfill? Is it going to be trucks? And how are you going to negotiate contracts to get it?
We have 3 years before the plant will be open and working. We will definitely go out throughout all of Florida. Florida right now puts about 14 million into dumps or landfills. So all we're looking for is about 400,000 tons. So we're not even using 1% of what they actually put into landfills right now. We feel like with everything that we bring to the community, tires recycling, so they don't have to take the tires and worry about where they're going right now. So we feel like everything coming in and everything that we can offer a community now will be very beneficial to them. Not only will it be beneficial for them to, because our tipping fee is a little lower than what we've seen out in the surrounding communities, they will also get tax credits back from the fuel that we produce. So there's really a very good wash in there for the communities that we're looking at that would bring waste in.
I don't think you answered my question, but it sounded good, what you said.
Well, ask it again. I'm sorry. I do want to answer all your questions, Mr. Flagg.
This community has indicated to us in more than one meeting that we don't want outside waste. I think we're at the point now that we know that in order for us to maintain any viable option, that there will be waste that's generated somewhere else that will end up here in order for any of the options that I have heard thus far.
Correct.
Where will the waste come from, and how will the waste arrive to Putnam County?
I'm sorry I didn't answer that.
Yes, sir.
First of all, we do plan on bringing in rail. We've already talked to CXX and bringing in a rail so that we can ship it in and it will be dropped into the plant. Mr. Larry can tell you that when waste comes in, it has to be disposed of in a 24-hour period of time. It can't be sitting on our floor. So once it comes in, it will immediately start processing. So it's not hanging around. So in a 24-hour period, that 1,000 tons is being disposed of. And then when the next 1,000 comes in, so it's being disposed of basically in a 24-hour period.
Coming in on rail, you said?
Rail, that's what we're anticipating. We're going to have rail available, yes, sir. We will go out, I'm sure you understand, beneficial for us as well as surrounding counties, Clay County, St. Johns County, Alachua County, which are producing 400 tons a day or more. And we feel like once we present this program to them, that they would, because of lower tipping fees and also because of the recycling and capabilities that we have for them, they would be interesting for them to join forces
You
with us.
anticipate when you reach out to any other community that their existing contractor is going to not at least be competitive?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
When you reach out to any other entity, and obviously the farther you transport garbage, the more expensive it is for you to handle it. Do you think that the contiguous counties in Northeast Florida, if that was the area that you primarily focused on, do you think that the existing contractors are going to not at least counter you and so they can maintain their market?
Yes, sir. We do believe that we have a very large target on our back. It is a competitive market. I think the one thing that we offer, Mr. Flagg, and I think the citizens and you as commissioner, you as commissioners, when it comes down to it, when you look at it, instead of, and I'll just use Clay County for example, they're shipping it right out to a Georgia landfill. When it comes down to it, you commissioners, wouldn't you rather have it disposed of 100% and not going to any landfill anywhere? And I think that's also at a less price than right now. Now, if they do come up more competitive, which again, I don't see that happening. Now, if one of them comes up and says, well, we're going to lose money to keep them out of the game, we're very competitive also. So I think we'll be right in the ball game. And there's plenty of opportunities. Like I said, there's 14 million tons, and all we need is 400 tons.
Mr. Libo?
Well, along the same lines, I know from my research that the average cost of per ton with plasma arc is about $83, $85 in there. Now, that's a long way from, say, Waste Management's transfer station to Georgia, Chester Island, Georgia, at $33 a ton. How do you plan to knock $50 off that?
Well, basically, as I indicated to you quite earlier, I think as all of them, our tipping fee is $29. If we go outside of the county, because you will receive a 10% commission on stuff we bring in on outside of the county, so we have to charge those counties $3 more. So we'll be at about $33 on a county outside of us, outside of Putnam County. So you will actually get revenue from that. And again, keep in mind, and I think this is what lots of people don't understand, the tipping fee is really just a base. We make money on the back end. As you indicated,
I want to hear about the back end because I'm using your European figures
Okay.
where this technology is being applied, and it's no less than $83 a ton.
okay.
That's a long, long way from
Well,
$33.
I can sit here and tell you that our contracts with Putnam County will be $29 a ton, Chip, and it will not be anywhere as close to that. We have to have fuel being waste brought into us.
Got to distribute that fuel. And where's that going to go? That's what I'm getting at.
Uh,
The fuel that you're going to have to take the syngas somewhere for sale.
Oh, yes,
To
we-
get that per ton price down.
I'm sorry, we have,
You can just tell me it's going to be $32, and I believe you. I really do. But how are you going to get there?
there's two processes. First of all, we already have letters of intent from Musket Oil, Marathon Oil, and Gate Petroleum right here in Jacksonville. They will buy all of the fuels that we can produce. And I would basically throw numbers out to them that we'll produce about 20 million gallons of diesel fuel. That's what we're producing, Will. And they will be willing to buy it at market value. Now, they could not say what the market value will be in 3 years, but if you really look at diesel fuel, that does hold a very good base, and it doesn't fluctuate like gasoline or things of that particular nature. So diesel fuel is the commodity that we will support. Now, keep in mind, that is just one fuel that we can produce. There are other chemicals and other fuels that are very sellable that can go up to $5 a gallon that we could actually produce. But again, because we're getting long-term contracts for the fuel, and that's what our investors want, they want to know that we've got somebody to buy it all along the line. So yes, now also as we seek out, we will look for people to purchase the installation or the road bed. Also, there's other products that we'll be producing. We can produce distilled water. We'll be pulling the gold out. We'll be pulling the silver out, the softer metals, things in that particular nature. Again, that's not a lot of money, maybe only $1 million a year in gold, maybe $1 million a year in silver, but those things will be pulled out, and that's extra funds that will be coming in.
All this in 3 years.
Yes, sir. It's the plants now that are being built in T Valley, and they are actually being slowed down because of the unions over there. They have 40 unions just working in one plant. So they have a tremendous union problem over there. A guy can do a well, and then another guy has to come off and clean the well. We're fortunate that we don't have that issues here, so we feel like very positive that we'll have the plant. We figured 6 to 8 months on permitting, and then 24 to 30 months in construction, and that'll actually be in the contract that we'll receive from the EPC contractor, that he'll be able to do that. We have a very good labor force here. People are ready to work and willing to work. I was out at the local school here, the welding school. They have about 20 gentlemen there and about another 30 out of St. Augustine. We use lots of welders. These guys are trained well. Ronnie, the supervisor out there, is an excellent trainer, and we're looking to bring those people on. And they will be career people, because not only when we finish the plant, and I'm sure Walt had done some welding, these wells have to be x-rayed on a regular basis. We cannot have a pin leak, so as they're getting x-rayed, they will have to be repaired and strengthened too. So, but yes, sir, there'll be.
One more question.
Sure.
On, you obviously would like the footprint of our landfill, but what about the adjacent land, contiguous land? Why not purchase any of those lands next to our landfill?
Well, I
and
think
build a
that's
plant?
actually what we don't really want any of your landfill. I'm sorry if that was ever misunderstood. We're not in the landfill business, and we know for a fact that landfills will have to be cleaned up one day. That may be in your grandchildren's time, but they will have to be mined. That's why Lou Cicero has a permitting on mining, not a permit, a patent on mining landfills. We know they will have to be mined one day.
Okay, with that being said, why do you need our permission, or why are you soliciting us for this?
Good point, Chip. You know, our investors basically are putting up well over $300 million. They want to be welcomed in this community. And I'll tell y'all a quick story. I don't know how many people were around here in the 70s, but in the late 1970, I was involved very much in Clay County. And Georgia Pacific came to Clay County and said, we would like to build a plant in Clay County. Mr. J.P. Hall, which is a close friend of mine, he's passed away, was willing to make them a deal on the land because they were going to bring jobs to Clay County. Well, there was a few people in the county that got upset, and I was remembering right to this day who they are, not to get into it, but they said, oh no, this is going to create hazardous, and it's going to kill the cows and kill the grass. And about a month later, the Koch brothers said, well, I think we'll go to Putnam County. God bless Putnam County. Y'all made a smart decision at that time. There's no cows been killed, and nothing has happened. And Georgia Pacific employs lots of good people. But if y'all go back and look at it and talk to the Koch brothers, they'll tell you that story because I was right there. So you have an opportunity now to do something great for Putnam County. We don't want your landfill. We want adjacent land. I think we have given the map over to Mr. Leary, and we've looked at it, and I think he's given it to his land planners, and we're sort of looking at the actual area that we want. Now
You have our acceptance. I still don't understand what you want from us. We want jobs. We
Yeah.
want clean technology. I'm for you.
Well,
I
good.
really am, but why are you soliciting us?
Okay, good point, and I'm sorry I didn't cover that, so maybe now's the time to cover it. Two things. First of all, this is the lowest economical county in the state of Florida. We know that. We want to buy some land from the county. We can go out, and we have identified land that is not the county's land, and we can buy it very good. But why not buy county land close to the landfill that could be beneficial for us down the line? We're not sure, but we're being prepared. So we would like to buy, I think we've designated 500 acres that we would like to buy next to your landfill that you have designated, from my understanding, that you have no particular use for in your planning, what they call it, long-term planning program. Now, the other thing that we thought was very good, and thanks to Mr. Larry Harvey, he took us out to a building in your industrial center that was built, 52,000 square feet. And, pardon me, let me grab some water. And we looked at it and said, well, great, this is a shell, 52,000 square feet, has good parking, good light. It's a couple blocks from the airport. And one thing that we have told y'all numerous times is that our employees will have daycare facilities available to them, as well as tutoring for any students that are in school and in college. We'll have that available to them. We can build a YMCA and a portion of that building. Now, the good thing about it is that the YMCA is a nonprofit organization, so we can write that off. We can build a nice, big 25,000 square feet YMCA for our employees, and also have facilities there for our students, for students that our employees are working with. And so I'm very proud that that's one of the things that I had to take back to our financial people, and they love the idea because they are somewhat very active in the YMCA also. So they love the idea, so that is part of it. And of course, besides doing a YMCA, because it is a large building, there's easily 2 stories in the other portion of it that we'll use as national headquarters. And we've considered giving so many rooms to nonprofit organizations such as Habitat or whatever, and if they need a room, we can provide that room
It's all
for.
good, Mr. McIntyre, but
Sure.
why don't you go? Let's do it.
Well, what we would need for you to go ahead and do a RPC, I think, or
Request for proposals.
RFP, so that we can purchase the land.
Financial people are ready to make a bid on that.
Pardon me?
Your financial people are ready to make a bid on the 500 acres you're seeking
Yes, sir.
right
Correct.
now, and the spec building. You'll cut us a check for that spec building.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Mm.
From my understanding, talking to Mr. Rick Leary, that has to be advertised, and we're ready to make the bid. Yes, sir.
Well, it's a pre-recession white elephant, or what, a pink elephant, whatever you want to call it. We'd love to
Well,
sell it.
actually, we think it's a good building.
It
It
is,
does
it
have
is.
some, it is a dirt floor. It does, we've budgeted right now $5.5 to $6 million to bring that building up to our use. So, I mean, that's immediately, when we purchase the building, and you're talking about bringing in labor, things like that, $5.5 million to build that building. I'm talking probably at least 100 to 150 construction people, plus engineers, designers, and everything else
What
to
else
get
can
that.
we expect from the taxpayers? What do you need from our taxpayers or this board to help you along?
Nothing. We don't want a thing.
Again, so you just need a piece of property.
Yes, sir. Correct.
So to piggyback off of what Commissioner Lible is saying, if you need the acreage and you have the money, what is the holdup?
We would like to,
Okay,
Come on, guys.
please, I'm speaking to one person.
Yeah.
All of us should be listening. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And again, and maybe I didn't answer this. Our investors are putting up a tremendous amount of money.
Okay, you've repeated yourself enough times.
Okay.
The question is, if you need the acreage, where is the acreage? Why haven't you signed the contract? Because you say you don't need the county's acreage, you need acreage adjacent to the county. Help me understand.
Okay. Ms. Flagg, one thing we want to do is be good neighbors. We would like to purchase the land from the county, because of my understanding, y'all need some finances. $5 million coming into your hopper would be, and again, that's just a number we think that's going to be out there, and that's what we budgeted. So $5 million coming into you this year could be very beneficial to y'all.
Okay, we've had offers of money from other companies and things of that nature. We have needs in our county, but this commission is not a reactionary commission. If we were, we would have done some things before tonight, this afternoon. We are studying, we are learning about technology and things of that nature, but at the same time, we don't want to have a sack that we think is filled with one thing and it ends up being something else. And so all of the things that you're putting out about how many jobs going to be created, how many millions of dollars is going to do this and that and the other, the rails coming in and all of that, the business plan to me would indicate that your investors are ready to move. If there's a business plan that is presented that says precisely where you're going and what you're doing, every question that has been asked from the leaders up here and even staff, you have a ready answer, and I'm glad that you're as sharp as you are with all of the numbers, you know, on your head, and everybody, you know, again, there's not a single commissioner up here that is not for progressive movement in this county. We want jobs, but we're not willing to sacrifice our souls on a blank check to say that we're going to get some jobs guaranteed. So to me, it's time now for the rubber to meet the road. It's time for us to understand precisely what's what. I can't speak for the other 4 commissioners, but I can speak for this one. I'm an optimistic type of person. I am very receptive, open-minded about any presentation that comes before us. But let me tell you something. If the homework has not been done and you do not have a sound plan that, to me, crosses the threshold of success, I don't have a problem. I appreciate all the experts that's in the room. I appreciate all the technology that is in the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, and all those other places. But I want somebody to help Carl Flagg understand precisely what's going to assure us that what you are proposing is going to work in Putnam County, Florida. That's what I need. I can't speak for the others. That's what I need. I'm not there yet. I just have to be real about it. I think our council has a question, and then we'll come back to the commissioners.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Did I hear you right earlier when you said the people that invest money to build this project will have their investment guaranteed by an insurance company?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay, and have you been in projects using this technology where that kind of arrangement has been done? Where their investments were guaranteed?
Mr. Bobby Barnes with our insurance.
Let the finance person come to the mic, please, that has the answer to the question.
I guess the Bobby Barnes with Willis Insurance had to leave. I know he had another meeting. So from my understanding, yes, sir, they are insuring the project.
Okay, can
All
you
right,
get
so
that,
a moment-
just a minute, counsel. Can you get that person, when you contact that person, just to send a letter so that you
Sure.
don't have to guess about it?
But a
Thank you.
moment ago, Mr. Lible asked you a question about what do you need from the county and what kind of county buy-in do you need? And you started to say something, you needed some comfort level for your investors. Then you digressed into a story about Clay County and the Koch brothers in the 1970s, who, by the way, didn't own GP in the 1970s. But at any rate, you started to say something about you needed some buy-in or some comfort level from the county to comfort your investors, which I don't understand why they need that if their investment is guaranteed by an insurance company.
Well, they don't want to go to the insurance company and have to collect that money. The thing that we're looking for from the commissioners is a welcome, and I used the example there in Clay County. We want to be welcomed by the commissioners. That's a very key part of this. We would like to see, they would like to see, and I would too, that the commissioner says, okay, we're understanding your philosophy, your business plan. I think we've designed it pretty well. We're ready to move forward on the annex building as well as the property. And but we do want, they want to know, as well as myself and all of our people, want to be welcomed, Mr. Flagg. If there was one vote that basically it went down to 4-1, we would probably back out because we want 100% support from the commissioners and the people of Putnam County to say, this is something we want.
I'm not so sure I understand, Mr. McIntyre, what your definition of support is. I'm not so sure I understand that. But what I need everyone to know is that this is a pro-job commission. We want jobs. And at the same time, when it's all said and done, we're not asked for, you keep saying you're not asking for anything, and there are companies that will come in who do go through, whether you're talking about the Putnam County Development Authority, whether you're talking about the chamber there, whether you're talking about the Department of Economic Opportunity, state of Florida, and the size investment that is proposed to be brought to our county that we embrace, because, you know, if any county needed it, there's enough stats and studies and analysis and evaluations out there that would indicate that Putnam County needs this infusion as it relates to the economics. So you don't have deal blockers sitting up here before you, sir.
No,
And so I don't understand when you're saying you need to be welcomed. If you're bringing the jobs in, you have a sound business plan, you have your investors on point as far as what they're going to do there. You follow through with the regulatory agencies that need to issue specific permits for the magnitude of this project.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure I understand the missing piece of the puzzle. And maybe I'm the slowest one up here, but I'm just not getting why we're being painted as the individuals that are holding the project up. We're not the holdup.
Okay. Then what I would like to have is a vote from the commissioners saying that you would like to have a page come to town. And then I can.
I've never voted on anybody coming to town. If they're qualified to come, the door is open. Come on in the house. And that's just Carl talking. District 1, District 2, District 4, District 5, in that order, please.
what do you want us to say? I did have a comment I wanted to make a while
Please make
back.
it.
I'll go ahead and.
I'm
make it
calling you
now.
for what you want to say.
All right. I think part of the heartburn that I have is that St. Lucie County, when the company came to them and put the project on the table, they said, "City, you don't have to invest anything. We will build it." And they ended up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and nothing ever was put together and nothing worked. And in Ottawa, Canada, the same thing with the one that closed 3 months ago. It went on, I think for about 10 years. And they put in hundreds of thousands of dollars and nothing ever worked. I'm worried about that. We don't have hundreds of thousands to put into anything.
No.
Um,
May I respond?
Please do.
Please do.
Ms. Harris, we don't want any of your money. We're going to bring excess of $5 million to buy your land, buy a building. Again, the companies that you mentioned have nothing to do with the page, has nothing to do with our investors, and they're not even comparing apples to, or even a grape to a grapefruit. Pasco is basically a high-tech incineration plant. We don't have anything to do. I wouldn't recommend doing them. The ones that tried to come to Gainesville, I would tell you to vote against it because they, again, wanted county money. We're not looking for any county money.
Mr. Lyron?
Mr. McIntyre, frankly, the welcome mat comes flying out from me if you pursue what would be the normal entrance into a project this big. Why not a Department of Economic Opportunity, the governor's office, in Enterprise, Florida, where I know you're interested in job credits, you're interested in getting that airspace, that tower up, and you have to start there. And you've been reluctant to do that, and that makes me nervous.
Okay.
It really does, because there are literally millions of dollars on the table and hundreds of jobs at stake through your firm if you don't use these people. It's almost like you're hiding something, I have to say that.
Oh, okay.
You know, so that would give me a lot of comfort if you were to do that and the state comes to Putnam County and says, you guys need to get married. You know, I'd be happy with that.
We did meet with economic development with the state of Florida, about a half a dozen of them. Myself and our financial people met with them, basically proposed that this is what we're doing. They just basically told us to go ahead. There was nothing there. We met with your local economic development guy. I don't mind telling you, I wasn't impressed. He fell asleep a couple of times while I was talking to him. And I just basically said, you know, we're ready to move forward. I gave him some information that I thought was pertinent in us moving forward, and he basically called me a liar. So I don't want to ever have anything to do with him, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
well, my request is the same. Go right around our local person, go to the state. I need
But if
I need that comfort.
But
level.
if he's saying DEO said go ahead, how much more go ahead do you need?
Sir, we need to buy the land. All of these people, economic development, DEO, DEP, and everybody says one thing, where are you going to put it? We've got to buy the land. Carl, you can't take care of your business if you don't have vehicles and land.
Okay.
It's the same thing. We're
Not
ready to
relevant.
buy the land.
That's not relevant. Mr. Pelletier?
Not to be redundant, but everything, I can't speak for the other three, but everything Commissioner Flagg said in his remarks a minute ago, I agree with 100%. 100%. The small heartburn that I'm having right now, how long ago did I start talking to you about this? Year and a half, 2 years?
I think we've been
Right after I
talking
came into
2.5
office.
years, yeah.
And that number of acreage has been 300, 350, 4, now you say 5. Do you have a number? Do you know how much space your place is gonna take, how much parking lot, how much
Oh, yeah.
driveway?
Yeah.
Get a
was-
number.
Yeah, there was a couple things, and everything is adjustable. I mean, basically, the plant footprint is 100 acres, and I've said that for I don't know how many times. We want buffer zones. We would like to have a buffer zone. It can be a couple hundred acres, or basically from looking at our plans and land that you have available that was not being used and ready to be sold was 500 acres. We took that to Mr. Leary, presented it to him. He took it to, I guess, the people inside of his staff came back and said, yeah, this was land that was not available, that the county had no use from. That's my understanding from him. So I took that back to our board and our financial people, and they said, good, looks like a good piece of land. Mr. Leary said for him to sell the land to us, it has to go out for an RFP. Go out for an RFP. If somebody outbids it, then we're out of the ballgame. We're ready to bid on it. Yes, sir. And the same thing with the building. It does have to be 2 RFPs, from my understanding.
And your people have looked at the land as far as elevations and
Yes, sir.
wetlands
Correct.
and all those aspects? And
Yes,
it
we
meets
looked
that
at it.
criteria?
Yes, now there will have to be a survey and a land clearing and all that kind of stuff to meet all the requirements, but yes, to answer your question, we've looked at it. We've flown over it, looked at it on the map, looked at it on Zulu and everything else. So yes, we have a good concept of what we're looking into.
Mr. Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Castleberry, let me say thank you for asking the questions I was going to ask.
Wow.
My previous stint in the world was an insurance agent, and I kind of had the same question that Mr. Castleberry had. We do know about this. You and I met with Mr. Leary on October 9th, and we had this conversation about buying acreage at our landfill north of the northern expansions area. We did bring it back to the Board of County Commissioners, and at that time, we were going through the Solid Waste Committee and letting them work out whatever they needed to work out and bring things back to us. So we have discussed the 400 acres. Mr. Leary, I won't put words in his mouth, but the concern was we would have to get an appraisal of that property, and then we would have to bring it before the board and go out for the RFP. My concern was not to base the appraisal on a landfill, because my concern is if we base it on a landfill, then we're going to be selling airspace, and we already learned how valuable our airspace is. But for us to carve out acreage out of that 1,500 acres and use that for future technologies. And we knew what that price was, because in the contract with Republic, we pretty much said if you can't get a permit for that, this is how much you're going to sell to Putnam County, how much Putnam County will sell to you based on per acre. So we've kind of got all that. All we need to do now is to move forward and declare that land, since our Solid Waste Committee has moved on, to declare that land as future technology, which the Solid Waste Committee gave us room in their projections to us to have some availability there. And I think now's the time that this board could take on their recommendation and say, we're going to dedicate so much land out there for future technologies, put it out for bid, and if your company is the first one to win it, so be it. And I would be happy with that. Again, I want to commend our chairman and the rest of our commissioners. We all want jobs. I mean, let me assure you, the day that you do the groundbreaking, we're all probably going to be there, you know, helping pass out the Kool-Aid and the donuts and everything else. We want this to happen. And even if it's 50 jobs at $40,000 a year, produces $2 million in payroll. If those 50 jobs produce 3 more jobs in the community, that's another $2 million. With $5 million in payroll, we can use that in Putnam County. Not only that, we can use $7 million in taxes that your company would generate, not counting what the spec building would be if when you built that and you put that back on the tax roll. Now, unfortunately, the enterprise zone at the business park is probably going to be going away.
Correct.
The legislators didn't renew that, and your investment in that would probably, unless you started tomorrow, would be null and void. So, I mean, we've got some serious things we can do to help you push that along. And again, I want jobs just like everybody does. I want technology just like everybody does. Do I want to see me throw a bag of garbage in one end and run down to the other with a cup and see what comes out? I would love to do that. But I don't mind taking a chance and being number one if it's going to be the best thing for Putnam County and our environment and our jobs. If this catapults us into the future, so be it. And I welcome you here, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Couple of questions, Mr. Gass.
One of the things that I was basically concerned with is if we take landfill property, declare that excess, put a valuation on it, and put it up for bid, we could end up with a situation where somebody like Republic could come in, bid on that landfill property, create a competitive landfill with us, and then bring in as much waste as they want because they're under no contract with us. They've already got property that is been zoned for landfill use. And if whoever is bidding on there is the high bidder, they will get that with that zoning. And that is a risk that we would have to try to mitigate big time, because you're looking at everybody losing the revenue from solid waste and having no control over what kind of waste comes into the county if that were to happen.
Thank you for the observation, Mr. Gass. Mr. Harvey?
I believe, Mr. Gass, that we could cure that with our contracts if we really focused in on future technologies. I think some of these companies would not be, if we didn't want a landfill, if we said we want something other than a landfill in the RFP, I think we could solve some of that. Agree, Mr.
A
Gass?
simple,
Well, I'm not sure you can sell land and condition the use of it. You declare it surplus, saying the county doesn't need it, and put it up to the best bidder. I don't know that we've ever tried to condition what use could be made of the land. We'd have to look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What-
Do you have any closing
pardon me,
comments, Mr. McIntyre?
Casper, wouldn't zoning, if you zoned it saying this land was available for waste in and zoned according to waste to energy projects, wouldn't that solve your issue?
We could perhaps change a zoning or a comp plan designation
Yeah.
to do that. But I'm not sure we would want to do that and detract from the value of the land we're trying to sell.
Okay, closing comments, Mr. McIntyre.
Okay, well, thank you, and I want to appreciate everybody, all your time and your participation in the last 2.5 years. Mr. Flagg, we are ready to move forward. At your next meeting, if y'all decide to go out for an RFP, that will take about 30 days for, if you send an RFP out for both projects, we'll be able to respond for that. And as soon as we make those purchases for the building, we will start renovating that. And of course, we'll start with all of the other permits and things that we have to do, because now we have a designated location. We can't go out and do anything with DOP or economic development or anything else until we have a designated piece of land.
Okay, I want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding or miscommunication. This board has not made any decisions today at all.
Yes, sir, correct, I
Okay,
understand.
I just want to make sure that's, because I hear you saying something about the next meeting, that's next week, and I'm sure there will not be anything about this on the agenda. This commission, contrary to what some may think, we do our homework, we do deliberate, and when we deliberate, it's individual deliberations by talking with our experts and administrators, and then when we do public deliberations here, so we can at least get a sense of direction for what the board feels is in the best interest of our county. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, so that people are not showing up next Tuesday thinking that we're getting ready to take some action on this.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean to put words, say that. I was just using that as an
Okay.
example.
Thank you for your example. Any other closing comments, sir? For you? Do you have any further comments?
No, we're ready to move forward.
Well, thank you for coming, and thank you for being here. Mr. Leary, do you have anything else that the commission need to be
Yeah,
related?
I have another small matter I wanted to bring up, but I didn't know whether you wanted to take a break before you did that or not.
Okay, I don't think I necessarily want to take a break. Is there any other comments or questions that concern directly with a page or with, again, thank you for coming and for the presentation. And thank you all who have come to partake and to be listening ears along with us, so that we can all move us forward. Okay, we could take a 3-minute recess, and then we'll come back and whatever you have, Mr. Leary. like to call us back in session for our administrator to, you may continue the fellowship, but we have just a little bit more in our workshop before we adjourn. So if you're staying, please be seated. If you want to continue the fellowship, you may proceed beyond those doors.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Castleberry has corrected me. What I was gonna bring up, actually will require some action from you, so I'll defer that until Tuesday's meeting.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
God bless us all. What'd you say, brother? See, you wouldn't miss.
I said I wouldn't probably, I'd said shut up.